and gentlemen,
Let it be here.
we'll start the proceeding for the day with Mool Mantra, and thereafter there will be 2 minutes silent to pay homage to the victims and our martyrs. एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. May I request you all to stand in silence for 2 minutes in memory of
I request our President of the Sikh Forums, Dr. Pushpinder Singh, to start the proceeding.
Fellow citizens, friends and family, this is the 32nd year after those ignominious year of 1984. It's been said that our memories are independent of our will. It is not easy to forget, especially the memories of devastating happenings and ravaging experiences. That is why the things we remember most are those that should actually better have been forgotten. The Sikhs have often been advised to forget what happened in 1984 and let bygones be bygones. When a nation is subjected to almost carnage of a genocide manner, how on earth can the survivors forget that Holocaust? I'd like to go back 70, 80 years when more millions of Jews perished in the Nazi years. Have they been able to erase the memory? Of course not. The Sikhs have not been able to forget the various attempts over the last many centuries at devastation, entire devastation of the entity. In the 18th century, armies were marched upon them to finish them off. There was a Chota Golgara, minor Holocaust. Some years later, Ahmad Shah Durrani from across our western frontiers mounted an even more devastating attack and declared with the beat of drums that Sikhs have been exterminated. We didn't get exterminated. This event in our memory persists as the Vadda Golgara. And these Holocausts will continue to haunt and probably shall continue to do so as long as Sikhs exist as a nation. Okay, talking of our secular democracy, any action by a majority community is easily considered as secular, while an action by minorities to safeguard their interests, even their survival, is not necessarily palatable and is blatantly dubbed as communal. I think we're the least communal community in this country. Anyway, we have had several holocausts, we've had several well-designed acts against other minorities, the Muslims, Christians, and this is a very unfortunate pattern. But we, Sikhs, remember very much the happenings of 1984. With anger and agony, the government did little to help the surviving Sikh widows and orphan children. On the other hand, some of the leaders who are all identified, and we know them, who organized the attacking mobs were honored by, in a way, providing them places in the Union Cabinet. And the story doesn't end. Commission after commission, committee after committee have gone on. 3 decades set up to inquire into the anti-Sikh riots. They were not riots, they were pogroms. The commissions hardly did anything to assuage the injured psyche of the Sikh community. There were many private individuals, however, that made efforts to dig out the truth. The governments of the time simply ignored their findings. Therefore, it's understandable then that our psyche, the Sikh psyche, continues to smolder with continued anguish and resentment. Coming to the Sikh Forum, I shall very shortly have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Amarjit Singh Narang, who will give you a brief overview on the Sikh Forum. But this was established in the wake of 1984 and continues to communicate the program and the psyche, and will continue to do this till justice is done. I would now, without further delay, invite Dr. Amarjit Singh Narang to kindly give us a brief on the Sikh Forum itself. Thank you.
Honorable President, my fellow panelists on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, since I have been speaking from this forum for the last 32 years, I will not talk on the issue. Just for the information of my friends on the dais and those who are new here, I'll just take about 5 minutes to inform why Sikh Forum came into existence and why we are holding these meetings every year for the last 32 years. Friends, as all of you know, that early 80s were the years in which Punjab was made, it didn't enter itself, but it was made to enter in a very turmoil times. Some of the Punjabis, particularly those who were concerned about the issues, social harmony, national integration, communal harmony, they formed a group called Punjab Group. The people who formed the Punjab Group included persons like Kuldeep Nayyar, Inder Gujral, General Jagdish Singh Arora, Dr. Amrik Singh, some of us in that. In spite of our best efforts, nothing could happen, and ultimately, come Vrinda. So, in spite of all that, 84 happened. First, in the shape of Operation Blue Star, then assassination of Prime Minister Mrs. Gandhi, and finally, the carnage, which recently the Home Minister of India itself has accepted, a genocide happened. So at that time, it was a question where we are, what is happening. And still, there was a situation like 1947, as a lot of Sikhs thought that it is time to move towards Punjab, and giving a situation where so-called Punjabi Hindus may come out of that. Our concern was, no, it's not the issue. We are Indians by right, and we have to live in India as dignified citizens. That made some of us, led by General Jagdish Singh Arora, to call a meeting in Delhi And in that meeting, it was decided that there should be a body of Sikhs who can speak rationally, who, in spite of all pressures, remain secular, committed to the citizenship of this country, and still fight for the rights of Sikhs, minorities, and civil liberties of all. So it is in that process, right in December 1984, in fact, November 84 itself, the Sikh Forum came into existence. Right for beginning, our concerns were two, in fact, three. That is, to remain integrated with the civil society of this country, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, language. Second, to provide succor, relief to the victims in terms of their relief and rehabilitation. And third was to fight for justice. Right in the beginning, it became a matter of great satisfaction to us that more than Sikh Forum, the civil society itself, and primarily civil society from non-Sikhs, came forward towards all these two actions, that is, to provide relief and rehabilitation and fight for justice. Some of those who were very active at that time are sitting before you. The Lokraj Sanstha, then Nilanjan, Uma is sitting there, my colleague from Delhi University, Vrinda. They did their best to provide some sort of succor to the victims, and also Vrinda gave an affidavit, personal affidavit to the commissions. Uma wrote extensively in journals, Economic and Political Weekly, and many other places. She went herself with her colleagues to various camps. Then Nilanjan, he again visited many camps, and lately he has come with a full book on 1984. Justice Anil Dev gave judgments against the criminals, but not only gave judgments, he passed strictures on the system against the police, against the political class, that why this is happening, what has happened. Surinder, again my colleague from JNU, has been working and writing extensively on the issue. There are many others, PUCL, PUDR, what to name, seniors. So they were all involved with us. That gave us a strength that Sikh Forum is not alone in this task, and we can do a lot. But since the concern was justice for the minority in particular, but the protection of the civil liberties, rule of law, the democratic values in this country as a whole. So Sikh Forum took upon itself that we will continue this fight in a manner which ultimately must lead to justice. We found people like Fulka and his friends, those who offer services free of cost to fight cases in the courts, to be in touch always with the victims. And that is why we have sustained ourselves. We provided relief and rehabilitation to the victims. In the beginning, we started a scheme in which we provided education up to class 10th to more than 3,000 children with the help from community, not only Sikhs, but community as a whole. Thereafter, we have been holding these two meetings, that is one in June every year, to commemorate the Operation Blue Star, because that itself was also just not an attack on minorities, but on the very question of the rights of minority in general and the rule of law in this country. How forces have to be used, where forces have to be used, why forces have to be used, in what context and what time forces have to use, that needs to be reminded again and again, how situations have to be dealt with at that time. Second, we have been holding this meeting every year to pay our tributes to those who laid their life to remember the martyrs, and also to express our thanks to all those who came to the help of the community at that time. And most importantly, to press upon the powers that be that justice is a must. Because without, I wrote a piece on the occasion of 25th anniversary in which I wrote, had there been punishment to the perpetrators of 1984, perhaps things like Babri Masjid and Gujarat could not have happened. But that was not to be done. Again, all of us have been writing about this, and lately you might have seen this pamphlet, which again I have written, to remind the states B, and I will conclude with that, that why we are organizing these meetings is not simply to keep the issue alive for the sake of it. I have quoted in this article a former Director General of Police who took over the Director Generalship of Punjab Police immediately after 1984. I'll just quote one paragraph from him and I'm done. He wrote that it was in 2006, Kripal Dhillon, the former Director General of Police of Madhya Pradesh and later of Punjab, Sikh children who have been mute and terrified witnesses to the brutal killings of their fathers and brothers, molestation of their mothers and sisters, and plunder and destruction of their homes, have grown up to be angry and bitter young men. The widows of the 1984 massacres have been waiting patiently for over 2 decades for justice, are growing more bitter and despondent by the day, while the perpetrators of butchery roam free, some of them even occupying ministerial offices. Evidently, the wounds of 1984 will not heal as long as stern action is not taken against those guilty of the carnage. That is what our stand is. That is what the stand of all civil liberty, civil society organizations, human rights organizations is, and that is what for we organize this meeting everywhere. And again, in continuation of that, this meeting today. And thank you all for joining us on that day. Thank you so much. As I told you that right from the beginning, we have been concerned with the rehabilitation and relief of the victims, and this process continues. Today, on this day, we have decided to give some stipends to the students of the families of that period. Some of them may be grandchildren, but since they have been sufferers of that period, we still own them as our children of the times of victims. Please, sir. ना बोले नहीं अच्छी वैसे ना बोले बोली जो आ जाओ तुम्हारे को है लिस्ट
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have been given this honor to announce the name of these underprivileged children, those who belongs to the family were killed in 1984. Nisha Kaur, daughter of Raja Singh. Nirmal.
It will save time.
Nirmal Kaur, Kavita Kaur, Harpreet Kaur, Daljit Kaur, Preeti Kaur, Pooja Kaur, परमजीत कौर, रमन सिंह, हरदीप सिंह, गगनदीप सिंह, परविंदर कौर, इंद्रजीत सिंह, ज्योति कौर, परविंदर कौर, हरदीप कौर, परमजीत कौर, रविंदर सिंह, मनप्रीत सेठी.
He's a special child, turning in